All right, so here we are with our notes. We're going to be doing 3-4 notes a little bit differently today because I'm going to try to use the online graphing calculator for our parent functions and graphing calculator notes. So the idea here today is that you're going to have access via HeadRush to this calculator. So instead of going to Taskboard like you would normally to kind of see what's going on there, you're going to be going to the overview, which is the first page. That first page is going to have this online calculator here. And so as long as you don't have editing powers, you're going to be able to just click on it and it will open a new tab for you. Underneath it does say the directions are to press start, and then click on the calculator image. So if we go to that, we'll press start and start again, and then click on this teeny tiny calculator image. So if we were in school, you'd all have one of these calculators sitting in front of you, but hey, we're online. So first thing that we're going to do is graph a few of these functions here, and I am using kind of a different technology for how to write on here, so we'll just go with how sloppy it is. So remember that we are graphing functions, so when we're looking at that, we're going to kind of graph via this idea of f of x. So if I place that there, supposedly I'm able to, there we go, ha! All right, this is going to be kind of slow. So we're doing our f of x, and notice that it's called a constant function. So this is something that we want to know. Constant means it's never going to change. So if we think of something like a variable, variables change. Constants do not change. And so all it means is that f of x is going to equal a number. So we get to pick whatever number we want it to be. All right, and what's going to happen, and maybe I'll use a little bit of typing for this, is that it's going to be a, let's see, which one is it? Horizontal line. Which means that it's going to be across. All right, let's make that a little bit smaller so it's not ridiculous. Okay. Okay, so what number are we going to put in here? Well, it turns out we can choose whichever one we want. So going back to writing, I'm going to say the number 2. Super. Okay. So remember that f of x is actually y, right? And so instead of thinking of this as f of x, we can actually just think of it as y equals 2. I'm probably better with writing with my mouse here. So what does that mean? Literally every y is 2. So officially I could just go ahead and graph this. However, we're supposed to be using a graphing calculator. So how do we do that? We go over here and notice that this says y equals. Okay, so if you click on the y equals button, you get all these fun little options, okay? And they're all going to be certain colors, so yay for that. And then if we type in the number that we want, which is 2, we can graph it. As long as you didn't necessarily play around with the calculator, it will always go to a -10 by 10 grid when you open it. And so each of these little tick marks is worth 1, and so you can see that at 2, there is a horizontal line. Okay, so that's kind of the first idea here. You type in your equation into the y equals, and then you can hit graph. Now notice that on this graph button, there's also this little table button, and so it's in blue. I actually just taught my son this today. It's in blue, and so if you want it, you have to click the blue button, and then you click the button again, and now it's actually giving you a table. So if we look through this, you can see that if I match up my table from here that starts at -3 with my table from here, I'm seeing that all of the y's are 2, which kind of already knew, but there you go. So that's how the graphing calculator can help you. Clearly a constant equation is a little bit simple. So taking a look at that, if we graph, we're going to plot these points, and hopefully you turned in your plotting picture of your emoji. All right, and then of course, because I'm on a calculator, I can go ahead and have the calculator, on a computer, I can have them make a very straight line for me at 2. But remember that you are going to want to draw that line as straight as possible. Make it a little skinnier. Apparently I didn't have it selected when I was doing all this fun clicking. Okay, so there we are with our first equation graphed. So using a graphing calculator. Now, of course, you can do this easier, at least with a constant function, by just knowing it, okay? But sometimes we get into very intense equations, and so we just want to be able to do it without them. So I'm also using a free version of this notebook, so that's why you can see that it has this giant watermark in it. Anyway, so the next one we're going to use is a linear function. And remember, these are parent functions, and so parent functions means as basic as possible, which, yes, I'm calling parents basic. Okay, all right. I am one, so I understand. Okay. All right, let's see. So we're going to make that guy blue because I like to make things match, and move it over here and realize that parents are basic. Okay. So if I want a linear function, there's a lot of ways that we can write it, but the most easy way to write it, again, because it's a function, is that f of x equals x. Okay. So that means that nothing is around it, nothing's added, nothing's multiplied, and so we have our most basic linear function. It will make a nice straight line, just like the previous one, but instead of being just a horizontal line, it's actually going to be a line at an angle. So how do we know what it's going to be? Click over to our graphing calculator, go to y equals and clear out our number 2. Let's say we didn't want to and we want to just keep them all there for fun. If you don't want that equation to graph itself again, you go to this little equal sign here and press enter, and now it's actually turned it off. It's still there, but it's off. I don't need to be so fancy. I'm just going to go ahead and clear that out, and then press X. Our X value can be obtained by the alphabet, but it's just unnecessary. This right here is always our variable. So if you click that, you get an X. Super. All right. And then remember that it's always going to be a window that is negative 10 to 10 by 10. It's given like that, so you don't necessarily need to adjust the screen because, of course, this is not as super as everything else, and so you can't just like zoom in and stuff. You have to kind of tell it where you want it to go. So if you ever get all of a sudden a random image that's not a 10 by 10, you can always hit zoom. And then see this one standard here, you can just press 6 or scroll down to 6 and press enter, and it will automatically give you a 10 by 10. So on that note, if we look at our graph here, you'll notice that we see a nice diagonal line. If we go second and then table, you can see that we have our values. So negative 3 is going to be negative 3, negative 2 is actually negative 2, negative 1 is negative 1, and I can kind of see a pattern here. So going back to our table, again, we graphed y equals x. And so if y equals x and x is negative 3, then y is negative 3. Or negative 2 if it's negative 2, and so on. Ooh, that was an interesting negative 1. All right, so that's the idea, and then of course we'd graph it. So negative 3 is right here. Negative 2, negative 2, negative 1, negative 1, and hopefully you can kind of see that pattern, which we will go through later. Then if I make my super awesome line, there it is, in green to match it. Let's see if it works. Oh, nope, now I clicked on that. We'll just make it like that. Super. Okay. And of course, as we've mentioned before, you do want to have those arrows on the end to indicate that it is a line, goes on forever, and then of course goes through all those points. So that is our linear function. So we will be doing one more, and then you're going to actually be doing the rest of them on your own. So we'll be doing the quadratic function next as well. The quadratic function is going to be an f of x, as always. And this time, because it's quadratic, that means that it has a power of 2. So x squared. That means that we're going to take every x and square it. But instead of doing all of that legwork for us, the calculator can do it. So going back to y equals as always, clearing that out and putting an x and then squared. You see the little squared guy right here. You can also do squared, x squared, by doing a little caret. A little caret here puts you up in this tiny little exponent, and then you can type, whatever you want in there. But of course, we clearly just want 2. All right, so that's x squared, and then we can go to our graph. Makes a little U shape. And then to actually know what those values are, we can go to second and then table. So if we have our second table here, we realize that 9 is our first value. And then we get 4. I just have it memorized. So there we go. And again, we're just copying from, oops, that's a 1. Boop. So 0, 1, 4, 9 kind of makes this little repetitive pattern here. So again, those are all those. And it does continue on, but notice that it gets a little too big for our 10 by 10 graph here. So our first point is -3 and then 9, boop, and then -2 and 4, -1 and 1, 0, 0, 1, 1. Isn't it great that we practiced our graphing, because now we know how to graph. Okay, remember how to graph, that's what we're doing. Okay, so this one's going to be tricky, so let's see if I can do it. Because all the rest of them have been super straight lines. All right. I'm going to make this a little bit skinnier than it is, just in case I have issues with, like cramping or something. Oh yeah, that was pretty sweet. Okay, so there we are with our quadratic. Again, kind of makes this U shape. And it's nice to know as you were doing it that it makes that shape, because otherwise maybe you would have done kind of like a connect the dots moment where it would have been very stiff. And we don't want that. We want it to be a nice smooth curve. All right, so to help ourselves out, I'm going to give you the next set of functions so that you can do them for the assignment. So number 4, the cubic function. You're going to want to have in here f of x, or y equals, and you're going to have a cubic function. Cubic is third dimension, so x to the third. Next one after that is a square root function, so hopefully we know what a square root looks like, but either way, the f of x function is going to be square root. And then the last one is going to be your exponential function. So our exponential function on this one, I believe I decided was going to be 2 to the x. Basically a number and then to an x power. All right, so again, you're going to type each of these into your y equals for the calculator. Then you're going to graph, kind of look at the image, and then you're also going to second table in order to kind of get the pieces. So on that note, we do have this image of the calculator that we want to make sure that we kind of have notes on. So for instance, this one here, it kind of looks a little different on our calculator, but the same idea here. If you hit the graph button, that is where you're going to view the graph. Okay. If you press second and then that button, and of course that's because, ooh, that is such a bright yellow. That is not going to help. All right, let's go to a different yellow. Here we go. Second. Because now you're going to the word table. But of course that came from the button that was graph. You then get to have the table, and you can kind of scroll around to what's happening there. I did mention this one here, the zoom button. If you do number 6, which is Z standard, that'll get you a 10 by 10 grid. See how easily I can write standard with a mouse. I almost feel like my handwriting is better than on the iPad. All right, that's not good. That's going to be a 10 by 10. Woohoo! Okay, Let's see. Here's our second button. So I guess I don't really know what I'm going to do about that other than, hey, there's the second button that involves this guy over here. We also have our squared button. That one is helpful to note. Oh, also, we'll do it with this. Beep. That one is your variable. Because I don't know how much you've actually done with a graphing calculator, but here we go. Alright, let's see what else there was. Oh, there was the y equals button, so that's this guy here. And this is where you type in your formulas. And that's probably about it, because it's not like you need to turn it on and off, because it already comes on. One difference between these two buttons here is delete is different than clear. Okay, so delete does one at a time, one space at a time, we'll call it. Whereas clear does the entire text. So entire line. So what I often see is that students will go into y equals and they'll be typing in this super awesome equation and then like, oh man, I needed to put in x squared instead of an x. And so then they like go back and they're like, oh my god, I'm just going to clear it all. It's a lot of work to then retype everything. So instead, if you had made that mistake, you can actually just go back in and maybe just delete this part and put your little squared. It's actually easier if you understand what INS means, which is insert. So if I wanted to insert like another x in here, I could do second insert and I could add a plus and then another x. So anyway, very helpful to know kind of these differences between clear, which will get rid of the whole line, versus delete, which would have just gotten rid of whatever that cursor is on top of. One more thing that you're going to want to know about is the square root that's here. So second square root is right there, and then you get all the stuff underneath. And then the power button, which we already did. So that one is the caret. So I guess I'll mention that in here. This is the square root. And I guess my button is yellow, but yours is blue. So you're going to want to press this blue second button and then go to your square root. And then there's also, this one here in order to get a power. Okay, so that's the idea. If you for some reason are not having a very successful time with doing this on this calculator, because the interesting part about this is that you can't actually make it bigger, because if you do, you have to like, you can't actually scroll. Like right now I'm trying to scroll down and you can't do that. So you can only have it literally as big as your screen is able to show. So you can always, pick F11 and then it'll kind of, well, anyway, I can't press it on this one, but it'll kind of give you that whole screen. But of course that's, anyway. So if this isn't working for you, switching to a different computer doesn't make it work so well, then you can always get me to send you one. So of course we should try what we have first, especially since this one is actually the most modern one. So there you go. So those are our notes for today for parent function 3-4 notes. And for your assignment, again, you're going to finish these. So you're going to finish number 4 here for the cubic function, graph that for me, fill in the table, and then these two as well.